welcome to Project Body Love with Elle in association with Philips. Now this event is part of our Project Body Love initiative, which is all about challenging the way we think, the way we speak and the way we talk about our bodies and kind of getting rid of all of that negative self-talk and embarrassment. Now, Philips is all about choice when it comes to hair removal. So that's whether you want to get rid of all of your body hair, whether you want to focus on your legs or your arms or your bikini line. It's all about what you want to do. And fortunately, Philips has loads of tools that help you do that. Now, today I'm joined by model and body positivity speaker, Sonny Turner, and size-inclusive brand consultant, designer and content creator, Sara Brown. So welcome, ladies.
Hello.
How are you both?
Good.
Good. So today we're going to be talking about sustainability at any size. So I was wondering, how would you both describe the way that you have plus size women, different shapes of women have been kind of included in that conversation about sustainability? So if I start with you.
Well, I would say it's definitely a topic that we've been excluded from, and shopping sustainably as a plus size woman is very near to impossible. It's very, very difficult to do. And I feel like, you know, that's the next thing in question. It's always been, we need to make our clothing more size inclusive. Well, now it has to be size inclusive, but also sustainable too.
How about you, Sara?
Yeah, I think that the fashion industry in general, they like to kind of take one topic that they're going to tackle at a time. Mm-hmm. And I think, yeah, we need to start processing these like at the same time. And, you know, I think you mentioned in your talk earlier that you can't just tackle them separately. We're not actually going to make any progress that way. So I think hopefully brands will start kind of considering the plus size consumer as a person in the same way they would their straight size consumers.
And what's your experience been like when it comes to shopping sustainably for plus size women? Yeah,
I mean, it's definitely been quite difficult. And I think everyone is probably in the same mentality that sustainability is kind of maybe still new to them. Mm-hmm. And so I suppose like now I approach it in a way where I will be looking perhaps at my fabric qualities and stuff, but previously it's been more a reliance on like vintage and secondhand, and maybe that's been the only way that I've been able to kind of tap into the sustainability arena.
And when it comes to self-expression, what do you think so many brands are missing when it comes to size inclusivity? Sara, if I start with you.
So I think it's with size and inclusivity, we always kind of pocket people and you assign them a style. And I think, so perhaps say if we're talking about sustainability, a lot of those brands would maybe have more of like an earthy look, and you know there's much less color and print being created in this like sustainable styles. And then I suppose if you then look at the size inclusive side of that, I think like they have very like similarities. Often people that are bigger are being told that they shouldn't be wearing bright colors or prints and things as well. So it's like when you add them together, it's like double whammy.
Yeah, and how are you supposed to express yourself if you don't have the means to do it? So any of you found this?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing that you just said. It's like some brands don't even give you the opportunity to express yourself because a lot of them don't even extend past a size 16 or don't even have a plus size collection or a sustainable collection. So, and when they do, it does tend to be just, you know, dark colours, things that are really muted, and it doesn't give you the opportunity to really express yourself.
And when it comes to shopping, we just said about, you know, it's frustrating, but what are the kind of emotions that you find when you're looking for brands that actually provide sustainable clothing, but also plus size fashion? Is it anger? Is it sadness? Is it, frustration? Because it's annoying when brands don't cater for women in general.
Yeah.
I'd say that's probably the biggest thing for me is the annoyance. It's like when you see a really nice outfit that you want and then you click on it and there's like 3 sizes. And I think it's really damaging, not just to plus size women, but to all women, because then they start to think, oh, I've got to be this size or one of these 3 sizes in order to be considered beautiful. So I definitely say it's like an annoyance and an irritation, especially with how much talk and how much, you know, move we've kind of made in the industry, when some brands still don't offer or cater to all sizes.
And Sara, how about you? Because that's so true, is that you kind of click on some brands or some websites sometimes, really eager to buy a top, and then you realise, oh, it's all gone in one size, or it's not actually in my size. You know, how do you find it? What kind of emotions does it start for you?
Yeah, I think that's kind of like my norm. So I've always been over like the standard size. Even when I was in my teens, I was still like a size 16. I think like now if I see someone wearing like a gorgeous outfit on Instagram, my automatic thing is like, oh, that's lovely, but I'm not going to be able to buy it. And I think I will go through that process of like, I'll look on their website, but it doesn't really surprise me anymore if I see them and they go up to a size 16. In fact, like I would be way more surprised if they did my size. So I think sadly it's just become like my normality. It does make me angry, but yeah.
I feel like also that was something for me that made me want to start speaking out and, you know, showing more of like the real me on Instagram. Was when I was 17, I worked in retail, and there was this rail of like clothes. I think it was like a dress or something like that. And these two like young girls, maybe about 11, like they both ran into the shop, these two friends, and they were like, oh my God, really want that. And like, you know, were really enthusiastic about it. They were obviously different sizes. And I saw them both searching the rack, and one of them had pulled out her size and was like fine and all happy and like run into the changing rooms. And then the other one pulled it out and she was like, oh, they don't have it in my size. And then like the way when I saw her face and just like how like embarrassed she like must have felt and how sad she was, that was when I was like, I was just like, I feel like we need to start talking about this more. That's what really did it for me, was when I actually saw it in person.
Yeah. And I think, you know, there has been change. There's so much more change that can be made. But I was wondering from both of you how you feel that the fashion industry has spoken to you or included you in the conversation when it comes to how you should and shouldn't dress, also giving you the means to do it, and how that's changed over the years. Sarah, if I can start with you.
I suppose sometimes I'll look at it from like the behind the scenes perspective as a designer. And even then I felt, I suppose, really like not included, but then sometimes also like looked upon like a little bit of a circus act. In a way where it's like, oh, well, you can make a really big thing about this because it's still really like rare. And I think that is quite damaging to anyone's sort of mentality. So yeah, I think you've always got to be just trying to justify your presence in a lot of like spaces and a lot of conversations, no matter like what you're talking about within fashion. And I think that we really have to sort of normalize people in these spaces. I think like what you said about seeing like the two girls, most people, like unless you are challenged by not being able to buy your size, probably don't even know that that's a problem. And so I think just by having these kinds of conversations, and there might be someone sitting at home that's like a size 10, and then they're like, oh wow, okay, now I understand. And I think hopefully that would help.
Yeah. I feel like it's such a tricky one for me. So if I was to look at it from being a model's perspective, and over the years, I've worked with brands where I would be the largest girl on set. I'd be the biggest model out of like everyone there. And then the image that the brand would be portraying is like diversity. You know, we use models of all different shapes and sizes. And on one hand, I feel great because I personally am included in this job. But then on the other hand, I think, well, what about the women who are bigger than me? You know, all the sort of things that kind of go on behind the scenes as well, like with things perhaps not fitting actually as well as they do, but they look great in the pictures. I feel like there's a lot of like kind of like juxtapositions. We think we've actually come really far when actually we really haven't.
Yeah, I think it's the kind of image that we're being sold as well, that there has been so much change, but as you said, there's so much more that needs to be done. And on that subject, I was wondering about how you both feel that women of different shapes and sizes have been viewed in the fashion industry. I think it was something that you mentioned the other day, that sometimes the fashion industry views certain body types as lazy or super athletic, whereas you can be athletic at any size. You can be lazy at any size. So I was wondering from your experiences how you think that plus size women have been viewed. Sonny, if I start with you.
I feel like plus size women have been viewed to be not fashionable, not care about themselves, not really care about their appearance, when actually it can be the complete opposite. Because I feel like a lot of the time we may feel like we have to make up for that and like go extremely like overboard. I feel like it's really sad that we're given often the bottom barrel of fashion, or we're often left out of a lot of collections. And I think it's kind of a shame as well, because the average person buying from a brand or the average people or women out in society buying from a brand are going to be of all different sizes. So I feel like the representation and the models that they use, and the fit models that they use, should also represent the public as well.
And Sara, how about you? How do you think plus size women have been viewed, largely by society, but also fashion?
So I think like we just have fat phobia like running through our veins in like every area. And so like if you think about film and the kind of stereotypical fat person or plus size person, often they will have like a narrative shortcut because they're fat. People are assuming then that maybe they don't have a job, or like they're lazy, and all of these kinds of like things that we assign to a person is then taken on through the fashion industry. So say with like athleisure and all the kind of like sort of tracksuits and things, if we think of a slim person wearing a tracksuit, we would maybe assume that they're going to go work out, or that they've just come from the gym and they have like a really healthy lifestyle. And if you're then thinking of a plus size person in the same kind of outfit, you would maybe think of them more on a sofa and thinking, oh, they're just being lazy, they can't be bothered to wear structured clothing. And there's so many different like types of clothing, whether that be something really fitted, something that shows off a bigger bust. I think that you just have different ideas depending on what the body is wearing them. And for so long we've maybe sort of disconnected. We haven't like spoken about the fact that bodies are so ingrained in fashion. I mean, it is the reason that fashion exists. But I think that we kind of have to just view everybody the same, and try and remove that sort of fat phobia from all of our perspectives.
It's so true. It's the fashion industry is catering bodies. Then it's bodies that we're dressing here. And if we're not catering and giving women, men of all different shapes and sizes what they need.
I just think it's ironic how people will like call people over a certain size lazy, fat, and all these things. What about if these people actually do want to work out, but then they go to buy a sports bra and there's none in their size? How are they supposed to do that? A lot of women are not comfortable doing things without sports bras. Not even just sports bras, but like comfortable athletic wear and like leggings and just like really simple things that I think some people probably don't even realise are not even available if you're over a certain size, especially not on the high street. So how are we supposed to make a change and like do all these like great things if we're not included in the smallest things such as sports bras?
Exactly. It's not just about choice, it's about having the means to make the choice. Like, it's just ridiculous if you can't do that. And Sara, I'm really interested because one of your roles is size inclusive brand consultant. And I was wondering what does that entail, that role?
So I suppose it takes my lived experience as a plus size woman and then my learned experience as a fashion designer, and gathers that together, and then I go to brands that have perhaps like a smaller size range. So obviously normal brands might go up to like a 16, and my role is to go in and work with them to expand their size range. I think it sort of spreads across so many areas, whether that's talking to like their marketing teams, being present in like clothes fittings, I think is really important when you're trying to expand the size range. So it's sort of taking the technical side of things, but then also perhaps the more emotional side of things of trying to tap into that plus size market. I think there's a lot of, I suppose, like trauma that people might have assigned with the fashion industry if you are a bigger person. So trying to teach them how we should be talking and learning maybe different language and things like that. So it's a very kind of overall position that I feel like I've go into companies and try and like just talk to as many people as I can.
And it seems like quite a new title, but something that's so essential that it's quite strange that it's not even existed before. All these conversations they haven't happened before. How have you found brands being receptive to that and, you know, receiving it? Has there been a bit of a backlash? Has there been a bit of, you know, we try and do this, but, you know, kind of justifying their behaviour? Or are they really accepting and saying, look, we need to learn, we need to educate ourselves?
Yeah. I think a lot of brands have been really excited that there's someone to help them, because it's kind of like an elusive thing. Everyone's telling them to do it, but there are steps that I think, unless you've maybe experienced how to fit clothing on a bigger body, they would be really challenging. And so I think the response has mostly been really exciting. And I think, you know, whether that's working with companies for like a long period of time, or if I even just go in and have a conversation with them for like an afternoon, I think that has been good. Like, it's been really happy. They've wanted to make progress. But I think there's definitely some areas of fashion where I think it's going to take a really long time to get through to them. So it might be a while until they want someone like me to come and help.
Every brand should have a you. Everyone should have a Sara and a Sonny. On the topic of sustainability, I was wondering, how have both of your relationships changed with sustainability and sustainable fashion? And also, what sustainable habits have you employed in your day-to-day lives? So Sonny, if I can start with you, how has your relationship with sustainable fashion changed over the years?
I'd say I've definitely become a lot more conscious this year with sustainability, because for the longest time I was completely consumed by fast fashion, and I started to realise that, you know, after a few washes, this isn't the same quality that it was when I originally purchased it. So what I've tried to do is to buy my like key pieces from better quality places, and places that I know are making an active decision to try and be more sustainable. So like the key pieces like jeans, which can last a really long time, jackets, even like basic crop tops, because like things that you will buy all the time, you should try and get something that will last you longer. So that's like something that I've been trying to do. And my relationship has changed with it because I really wasn't aware of it before. And also because it is so inaccessible if you are plus size. Obviously there are a few places, but I think it is relatively new. So yeah, just trying to do like small things in my day-to-day life. I definitely always am a person who won't throw clothes away. I always do like giveaways. I put it in my local clothes bin near me, which then goes back to charity. I've had so many pickups from different charities to my house. So yeah, just trying to make sure that they can get reused in like whichever way possible.
Amazing. How about you, Sara? How's your relationship changed over the years?
So I think my aesthetic in general is quite, often I'll be quite vintage and have like inspiration from past eras. So I've always worn secondhand and vintage, but quite recently, I suppose the fashion industry is obviously making these changes. And so whilst I've been working at brands, before my role as a brand consultant, I've been just working as a fashion designer in brands. And I think through that, we've seen there's been so much more focus on training, which I think has been amazing, and making sure that the designers know what they're, you know, putting out into the world. I suppose that's probably, you know, the place where we can make the greatest amount of change. So through learning more about more sustainable processes and fabrics and things like that, I think that then made me shop differently. I would be looking at labels more in the shop, like I'd be, you know, rummaging through and seeing like what it's made of. I've definitely also taken the outlook of trying to avoid like really fast purchases, I suppose, which I think obviously that's more inclined to happen with fast fashion because it's more accessible in terms of cost. But I will be trying to think through really what am I going to wear it with, and how long will I have that in my wardrobe for before I'm purchasing things.
And I don't know about you, but I found with the lockdown, although there has been the urge to buy, there's also been the time to look through your wardrobes and go, oh, didn't realise I had that dress. Or, oh, I bought that for a wedding, didn't go to that wedding last year. So how have you kind of found your experience with sustainability over the past few months in terms of shopping, but also going, right, I need to dig out my old clothes, or re-find, you know, the joy of finding clothes in the back of your wardrobe that you haven't seen for years.
Yeah, well, I actually got a new wardrobe, and I found that there were so many things that still had tags on, and I think that in itself speaks, you know, I bought these things and then I've just like not done anything with them. So I don't really like that to happen, but I had found that was happening. And so this year I decided to not buy myself anything until I got through the things that still had tags on, or like, I don't know why, but before I was so like, okay, new event or new party, that means new outfit. Like, what is wrong with re-wearing outfits? I feel like Instagram culture has like made us all think that we need a new outfit every week. I mean, I know for me, it definitely did for a while. And yeah, I just feel like just re-wear things that you already have. A new event doesn't mean you need a new outfit.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but when you were younger, did you kind of think, right, a Saturday night, new
Yes.
outfit, new outfit? And it did kind of, I think you're right, social media has encouraged that ideology of like, right, we need to be thinking, one time buy and constantly changing. Is there anything that you found in your wardrobe, Sara, in the past year that you're loving at the moment?
Yeah, so I think the term like shop your wardrobe is something that is quite new to us, but it's obviously really exciting to do. There's been quite a few times over the last year, obviously when we've been in lockdown, and there's been like Instagram challenges and things. There was like a rainbow challenge, which I took part in. And that sort of challenged me to look in my wardrobe and go back right to the back of it and find, you know, a certain color. And in fact, actually, that's quite an easy way to find things because it's really visual. So if you maybe set yourself that challenge, you might find new things. And I loved that because I found pieces that I was like, oh, maybe I can layer this differently or wear it with this new pair of shoes I've got. But I think one point to make alongside like what we're talking about, when it comes to size, often if you are plus size or you're bigger, I mean, this happens to anyone, to be honest, but I find the people that I talk to in the plus size community and myself, we often fluctuate a lot more with our sizes, and so over the past 5 years I've been anything from a size 16 to a size 26, and I think that then makes it harder for me to shop my wardrobe. I know like my mum in particular, she's been the same size her whole life, so she's still wearing things she's had maybe from the 80s, whereas I don't have that chance. So I will maybe shop more like knitted dresses I find really helpful. So I've got one knitted dress which I've had for those 5 years and it's fitted me amazingly throughout all of those sizes. And so I think to think about that when you're shopping as someone that has like weight fluctuations is really key to being more sustainable.
Yeah.
And then also there's a few brands that have started doing more like they're called like Fit Liberty, so I think that's possibly just the term that Universal Standard, the brand they use. But they have this amazing scheme where if you buy a certain product from them, if you lose weight or put on weight within, say, the next 6 months, you can send the pair of trousers that you got back and they'll send the size that will then fit you and you're not paying any more. So I think like brands giving that freedom is really helpful.
Yeah, incredibly helpful.
Yeah.
In terms of expressing yourself when it comes to self-expression, how do you try and do this with your fashion? Obviously, we seem to like a lot of colour here, but I was wondering, kind of, Sonny, what do you do to express it? It could be your values, it could be your beliefs, it could be, you know, certain things in the media. You know, how do you do that with your day-to-day fashion?
Well, I went through a phase of where I was buying loads of items with like slogans on them. So I have like loads of jumpers that say feminist on. I have like 2 crop tops that say my body, my rules. I feel like that's a really obvious way to show off your values and express yourself. I definitely like colour. That's definitely like a key thing for me to kind of express myself. And yeah, just accessorizing my outfits with like things that maybe were considered not to match each other. For example, trainers with dresses, Converse with skirts, and just like mixing and matching day and night is a really good way to express yourself.
How about you, Sara?
Yeah, I think like colour is my thing for sure. And I think like being a plus size person in general, just wearing things that either is like oversized, it's quite radical. So I would like to express myself in that way. I suppose to express my key value is just that we can wear whatever we want at any size.
Yeah.
So by wearing bright things and things that people might see as unexpected at my size is probably the way that I would do things.
Yeah, and also the way that we can wear secondhand clothes is a way of saying, look, this is my belief system. And I was wondering, Sara, it's really interesting to know about your background in fashion as a designer. I was wondering if you could talk us through a bit of your experience of sustainability and how you've kind of, as a designer, how that's kind of transitioned through your career so far.
Yeah. So I think like when I was studying, we were sort of taught maybe like the basics of fabrics and stuff. But when you're creating, so at my university in particular anyway, we were often designing at things that were much higher end. And so that's often can be slightly more sustainable anyway, because you're usually creating less of it. And I think that was probably where I sort of started learning about maybe reusing fabrics and like dead stock fabrics and utilizing like textiles that we already have basically. And then through the industry, I maybe got like shut down on that side of it for a while, just because it wasn't really as much of a talking point. But yeah, now thankfully it's such a big conversation, and I know a lot of like my fellow designers all have exactly the same thought pattern. You know, they're all trying to be better.
Yeah. It's not kind of, I think previously there was kind of a time when it was a bit of a buzzword, sustainability, like we're a really sustainable brand, but now it's that's what the consumer wants, and we are in fact the ones who can change the industry from kind of the outside. It was interesting before we touched on the fact that in fashion there's sometimes two different collections it could be. So it could be a sustainable collection or a plus size collection. But it's rare sometimes that a brand covers both. So it's a sustainable collection that has size inclusivity throughout, or a size inclusive brand that is sustainable. What do you think of this? There seems to be this kind of like binary opposition between we're a sustainable brand, or we have a sustainable collection, or we're a plus size brand and we don't have sustainable clothes. So what do you think of this? It seems to be like two competing worlds when really it should just be one. Sonny, what do you think?
I feel like it just shows how much we love to label things. And again, it makes it seem as though it's a short-term gimmick when it's not. It's something that we need to be implementing in high street fashion, online fashion. And I feel like by doing that, we kind of make it seem like one's more important than the other if we focus more on one and, you know, kind of forget about the other, when really they should both be tackled together.
And how about you, Sara? What have you found about this kind of the seemingly kind of apparent binary opposition between sustainable and plus size?
Yeah. So I think, so from like behind the scenes, like the fashion industry is just moving so fast. I mean, we all know that, I suppose, by how quick trends come and go. But I think when you have a company and the cogs are turning and you have to produce these clothes quickly, like it means that things often go under the radar. So then you'll maybe get like a person in the team which is really dedicated on sustainability, and then you've got another person in this team that's really dedicated with size inclusivity, and they're probably going to be working on projects separately. Because it's going so quick, they might not have that conversation to join paths, and I think that it will like require the whole brand basically to like work together. So a lot of brands, maybe especially at the moment, aren't even being designed in the same space because everyone's been working from home. So I think a lot of that probably comes down to communication at the starting point.
Yeah. It was interesting, I think we spoke about this at some point recently, that TikTok and social media has a really big influence, as we know, on shopping habits, beauty habits at the moment. But I was wondering how you think something like TikTok, social media, Instagram, Facebook, positively or negatively affects the plus size women and size inclusivity. I know there's something that you've mentioned recently about the way that there's a TikTok trend of buying oversized jeans and then cutting them down, but then you're taking out plus size jeans from shops. So yeah, I was wondering, Sara, if you could start what you think about social media trends and how this is positively and negatively affecting women.
I think what's really difficult with that trend is I'm sure the person that started it with all good intention because they're trying to be more sustainable. And you know, if you are able to buy something that's already in existence, that's much better than creating something that's new. But yeah, taking from that pool of clothing that is so limited already in terms of secondhand plus size is really difficult. I think there's not really anyone that can say you can't do that, because obviously we all have the right to be able to buy whatever we want. But I think that alongside with these trends that we see on TikTok or Instagram, it's really good to be accepting of a conversation where you know, people that you maybe didn't even know were struggling with this. If someone says something, to listen and be like, oh, okay, actually, maybe I will be a little bit more considerate for that group of people, and I'll shop differently.
Because I think this trend was that you would take a size of jeans and then you would fit it and kind of amend it, wouldn't you, to your size shape, which I hadn't even, you know, ignorantly myself, like hadn't thought about before, that, you know, you're taking that out of the pool from other women. What do you think about this,
I
Sonny?
wouldn't really say it's a pool, it's more like a jacuzzi. But
Like a tiny bath.
I feel like when TikTok first kind of started blowing up last year, the For You page was very damaging because it was only showing like really thin girls, girls in bikinis, really young girls as well. And then I feel like it took kind of for people to start noticing this, that they were favouring a certain body type and a certain look, for people to start kind of holding TikTok accountable. And now I know it's kind of customized to you, but now a lot on the For You page, I see so much more body positivity, how to style size 16, how to style size 12. I feel like there's always, any kind of body you have, there's always representation on there. And I feel like something that TikTok did quite well in highlighting was the emphasis on like mid-size. In the fashion industry, it's either you're super skinny or you're really plus size. There's rarely an in-between, which is super damaging because the average woman is a size 14, size 16, or when you go out onto the street, the average teenager is probably like a size 12. So I think TikTok has been great in highlighting mid-size and like, you know, how to style that, because I feel like that size range gets quite forgotten about a lot.
I think, as we said, it is amazing when these trends do show you how to style something or to change something. But like you said, it's good to have the conversation with it as well, to say, look, if this is happening, this is what you also need to know. And something you just touched on was representation. And many brands, many sustainable brands use adverts and photography of women of all different shapes and sizes, but representation, as you said, is so important. So it's so important to see if there's a sustainable brand that it does cater for plus size women. And I was wondering what you thought about brands in general and how they are good or bad at doing this when they're saying, look, we do sustainability and we have plus size, you know, plus sizes. You need to see that they have plus sizes, not just be told that they have plus size range, if you know what I mean. So I was wondering what your experiences of that were. I think it was something that you mentioned recently.
I feel like my love of fashion and just kind of how I view fashion has been really distorted by working in the industry in some ways, because when you kind of see like what goes on behind the scenes, especially with like fast fashion brands, it kind of turns you off. So for example, a brand will be, you know, kind of shouting that they're diverse and they use plus size models and everything, but then really on the set, you know, there's the clothes have had to be clipped in order for it to look good. They've had to professionally tailor the outfit to me, but then the consumer's not going to have it that way. So it's almost like a false image that they're portraying. And I thought that's like really prevalent a lot. So I'd just say to like any consumer, you know, as with any media, when you consume it, you know, don't completely believe what you see, basically. And yeah, I think that's quite a shame, really.
Yeah, how about you, Sara?
I think like the representation that we see of bigger bodies can often be still used as a gimmick a lot of the time, and we'll see brands that maybe go up to a size 16 using someone that is the bigger end of a size 16 perhaps to model their clothing, and it sometimes gives the illusion that that brand goes higher in their sizes than they actually do. So I think what we really need to see is just so much more of a varied spectrum. Like for the brands that are providing photos on every single size that they sell, I think that's the most honest way to go about it. And hopefully, especially the bigger brands that have the funding behind them, they can maybe start doing that, and then it's easier to shop no matter what size you are, because you can see yourself.
And like they can do it in such a really simple way. For example, their Instagram page, they can, like their customers are posting themselves in these outfits, just like repost a different body type or a different skin type, or, you know, make your caption more inspirational, talk a little bit more about sustainability and like where this outfit's actually come from, because at the end of the day, that's what people want to see now.
And something I found was interesting that we were speaking about before was education. Sara, I know, having been a designer and working as a designer now, the kind of the lack of education when it comes to designing or buying or merchandising, and your experience of kind of trying to look for the education when it comes to designing for women of different sizes. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so I think that that's probably the way that will hopefully change the industry, and it's probably the easiest way. I know from my experience, I wasn't really taught grading. So grading is the system of expanding through the different sizes that a clothing range is available in. We would always be making clothing on a size 10 if it was a female, or maybe even a size 8.
And is that the mannequin that you're making it on? Is kind of that standardised
Yeah, I
size?
suppose, I mean, that probably comes even down to funding for universities, but they have a set of mannequins, and those sets of mannequins are size 10 for women or medium, say, for a man. So from my perspective, I always wanted to make clothes that could fit me, like mostly because it's really expensive to make clothes and I couldn't afford to be putting that out there and not being able to wear them. So I would have to like buy my own mannequins. I have done that in the past, or for quite a while I was maybe said like, oh, if you want to be able to wear this, then maybe design something that's oversized. And so then that was dictating how I was designing, which I think was obviously really wrong. So yeah, by the time I was doing like my graduate collection, I did ask for help to do grading. And that was like, it completely revolutionized the way that I could then portray myself and, you know, represent myself as a designer. So I think that we have to be doing projects, you know, at the start of people's careers that pushes them to design for different body shapes, different abilities. And hopefully that will then filter through as when they're in their careers, they have a much wider scope of the type of body that they can design for.
Yeah. I feel like that translates back into the fashion industry and going back to representation, because that will then dictate what sample size they have available.
Yeah.
And then in turn with that, they can only cast a model that is a size 8 or a size 10 that will fit into the sample size. And I feel like that's what a lot of brands, especially higher fashion brands on the runway, have used for the longest time, is like, well, you need to fit into a sample size, and that needs to change because we're not all sample size.
Yeah.
And even with like modelling, during doing fittings and for the final graduate show, I had to pay for my own models that were plus size to be modelling on the catwalk. You know, the uni provided the models for everyone else, but because I was the only one that was creating clothes for bigger people, I had to find the models, pay the models myself. And I think just like having support for people that want to, you know, design differently.
Yeah. And it starts there as well. It's kind of the fundamentals. That's how we can bring about change. Just pivoting slightly, obviously we're talking about bodies here and self-expression. Now, body hair has been something that we've touched on many times in recent years, and the conversation thankfully has changed quite a lot. And I was wondering how you both feel about expression when it comes to body hair, because it was something that I think you mentioned, Sara, before, about it's long been believed that women can either be a certain size or they can do this with their body hair, but they can't do both.
Yeah.
So for example, a plus size woman can be plus size, but she can't have shaved legs or she can't have grown hair.
Yeah.
So what are your experiences of this, and how are your relationships? Sonny, if I start with you, about your relationship with body hair.
I would say it's not necessarily been something that's majorly bothered me until society, peers, people at school and that started to tell me that, you know, this needs to go. And I think it's such a shame, because there's so much bigger things to worry about and be insecure about than some armpit hair.
Yeah,
That's
exactly. How about you, Sara?
Yeah, I think relating back to the question, when you're fat or plus size, I think that is your only allowed flaw a lot of the time. And, you know, you can't have a gap tooth, or you shouldn't have hairy armpits. Yeah, it's hard. I think there's a lot of like models and stuff that we look to as the epitome of beauty. And in that sense, they're always allowed that one flaw, and we need to be allowed so many flaws. And I think the body hair, really comes down to your own choice, but often it's just being dictated by what society deems acceptable. And relating them back to size, there's always that thought of, will they think I'm lazy if I haven't shaved my armpits? You know, they think I'm dirty, because I think often plus size and fatness gets assigned dirty, and so they all really link into each other.
And what we were saying before about it's not just about choice, but it's having the means to express that choice. And I was wondering, when it comes to sustainability, obviously for years many women have used wax strips, or they've used razors to get rid of body hair, armpit hair, bikini lines. But what are you guys doing now to kind of make sure that you're shopping sustainably when it comes to beauty? Is it kind of using tools, electronic tools, for example, to get rid of body hair, or to trim, or to occasionally maintain body hair? I was wondering your experiences and how you're trying to shop more sustainably when it comes to body hair care.
I feel like anything that can get the job done quicker and that I'm not having to constantly do it is great.
How about you, Sara?
So I think I've probably just been doing it less. I think in general, just trying to buy plastics less, so then that sort of consciously feeds into every aspect of your life. So maybe trying to buy like better quality things that will then last.
Yeah. And on the topic of sustainability, people often feel like they don't have the power to make change. You know, I'm one person, how can I make change? But what advice would you give to people when it comes to sustainability, or women who think that they can't change or pivot the needle on a certain conversation? Kind of, I'm one person, how can I change the world? But what would your advice be as women who are speaking out about these important conversations? Sonny, if I start with you.
I would say try and be the change that you want to see, and that we all have more power as an individual than we know. Even just leaving like comments on a brand's Instagram page at what you'd like to see, I think really started blowing up last year. You know, telling these brands and letting them know what you actually want to see is a super powerful tool.
How about you, Sara?
Yeah, I mean, nothing's going to change if we don't all change. So by you acting in a certain way, you're actually probably making much more of a bigger difference than you think. So just having the strength in yourself to stick to your values, and challenging the people that are actually close to you. You know, if you can change one of your friends' perspectives, that's also incredibly helpful. So.
Amazing. And just finally, what would you like to see when it comes to fashion, size inclusivity and sustainability? What do you think needs to change?
I don't want to see separate collections.
Yes.
I think it needs to just be the norm, and like, you know, we need sort of like food, how it tells you exactly what's ingredients on the bottle of the packet. It would be good if we could get something on the label, you know, in a bit more depth about where it's come from, and then we can choose if we want to shop sustainably or not.
Bit more transparency. Yeah. How about you, Sara?
Yeah, so I think it's brands probably trying to think how they can change their business structure to instead of keeping like producing more, how can they actually change it to be producing better, really? And whether that better means more inclusive in terms of sizing, or more sustainable. I think ultimately we all want to get to the point where we can wear what we want and express ourselves however we want, but in a way that's much less damaging to the environment.
For sure. Thank you so much, Sonny and Sara. It's been so lovely catching up with you. And thank you for joining us at the Project Body Love with Elle in association with Philips. You can check out all the rest of our content on the site and all the products from Philips in the link below. Thank you so much for joining us today.